A girl awakens in her bed hidden behind a blanket in the Empire's grand celebration, when people assemble in the streets all night. Ilran flushes as she realizes she's naked, her thoughts racing with memories of how she ended up here in this strange situation. 12 hours before, amidst the festivities and the flowing wine, she enjoyed the fun with her companions. Her companions encourage her to drink more, pushing her to her limits. Among their banter, one of her friends mentioned individuals who promised allegiance to the Emperor, declaring they would join him hereafter. Confused, Ilran inquired innocently about the harm she had done, only to be confronted with the charge that her comments had tarnished the Emperor's name. Angered, she rose, about to leave, but her companions begged her to stay a little longer. She exited the house amidst a sea of adorned buildings and a brilliant full moon overhead, with deep apologies. Her mood changed instantly, and she was overcome with a delight she had not felt in a long time. She danced with the crowd, joining hands with a stranger and encouraging him to join in the fun by her side. She eventually found herself in his home, dozing off. As she rises from the bed, pain shooting through her body, she cast a glimpse at the man sleeping in an adjacent room, thinking that she'd been persuaded he was more attractive. Her gaze is drawn to the man's neck, decorated with a necklace of amaranth, the fabled jewelry fashioned by the disappeared artist. Its owner, the last survivor of the royal family, was the object of Emperor Karat's fury, having eliminated every other member and harboring contempt for everyone who clung to him, even those wanting a single night of passion. Ilran decides to escape the premises. Her relief is obvious upon her return home. She leaves her home to prepare for work, passing through the hallways of the Emperor's palace, when her chatty friend Sun Baimin interrupts her, inquiring about the happenings of the festival night and questioning her early departure. Sun Baimin's chattiness irritates Iran. The arrival of Captain Leonhardt, the revered commander of the Crescent Duchy and the youngest captain, puts an end to the chit-chat. He warns Sunbum that their first mission is to protect the Majesty and not to engage in frivolous chat. Then, turning to Iran, Leonhardt invites her to follow him to the king's presence. Fear of being detected en route, Iran agrees to accompany Leonhardt to face the magnificence. When they arrive, Emperor Karat swivels his focus towards them, inquiring about the happenings of the festival's final night, and their thoughts on personal interactions between a man and a woman on such an occasion. This unexpected question catches them unprepared. Nonetheless, Leonhardt strongly states that there is no impropriety as long as mutual consent exists. The king then requests Ilran's opinion, which causes her thoughts to rush as she wonders if he has discovered her secret. Struggling to find an appropriate explanation, she eventually asserts that such relationships are formed through interwoven hearts, despite the king's preference for restricted physical contact before marriage. The king dismisses them with a smile, and as they leave the room, Ilran breathes a sigh of relief, grateful for her near escape. Meanwhile, sat in his regal chair, the king's reflection mirrored in his tea, wearing a knowing grin, repeating Ilran's words, "Connected hearts." Leon approaches Ilran while in a state of bewilderment and inquires about the nature of her worried demeanor. Ilran diverts attention away from his worry by bringing up the peculiar questions posed by the king and musing aloud about the king's recent shift in behavior. Leon demonstrates his comprehension by nodding and moving away after hearing her response. After a few months, Ilran begins to suffer from excruciating headaches and realizes that she has not had her monthly cycle. She reasons that it's due to stress and mulls over going to a doctor, but ultimately decides that the discretion and safety offered by the Black Alley doctor are more important to her. She wears her black coat before going to the doctor's office to make an appointment. She considers the potential that her delayed period may not be primarily due to stress, and she does it while seated in an examination chair. She thinks about the possibility of alternate causes. Because she's concerned for her safety, she decides to go this covert route rather than visit a traditional clinic. The physician starts by asking the patient about her symptoms and then instructs her to remove some of her clothing so that he can examine her more thoroughly. She opens up about her predicament, including specifics of the evening during the festival. After performing a meticulous examination on Iran using a stethoscope, the physician makes a startling discovery and informs her that she's expecting a child. As the months pass, Ilran is left feeling overpowered by the information that was revealed to her, and as a result, he becomes increasingly weak and occasionally throws up. When she's in the same room as the king, her heart beats quickly because she's terrified that he will discover the truth. While Leon is accompanying her into the palace corridor, he shows concern for her health, to which she responds by dismissing it as a simple case of seasonal sickness. Leon, unconvinced, proposes that she see a doctor who practices in his neighborhood. However, Ilran believes that her physician is sufficient and she avoids his subject. Leon brings up the forthcoming inquiry session as the conversation shifts gears and asks her whether she's ready. Ilran, intrigued, questions the inquiry that will take place in a few weeks. Leon explains that the higher authorities have postponed the investigation dates and he allows her to withdraw from the process if she feels ill. Ilran is unyielding in its insistence that she will be there for the investigation. Leon checks with the commander to see whether all soldiers are present as they congregate in the large hall. The commander affirms that they are ready and states that they may begin the assembling now that the final group has arrived. Leon inquires Ilran once more about the cause of her condition after noticing that her skin is quite pale. However, she provides the same explanation each time. During their discussion, they enter the king's chamber and find him seated in his chair, intently reading a rumor circulating throughout the city. The king himself has propagated this rumor, therefore it's likely that he is the source of it. Ilran's discomfort increases when the cook serves grilled meat for the king to consume while Ilran is standing next to the king. Seeing it makes her feel queasy and she struggles to control the impulse to throw up, while desperately trying to keep her mouth closed. She knows that any sign of illness before the king could mean danger, so she averts her gaze as the cook brings tangerines. The sight of the tangerines causes her tremendous cravings for them, but she does not dare ask for a piece of them. She has decided to give up, and while making arrangements to buy tangerines on her way home, she suddenly realized that the fruit was out of season and would be prohibitively expensive. While she's preoccupied with the fruit, her stomach begins to grumble, drawing the notice of the king, who's standing very close to her. She takes a deep breath and rests her hands on the king's shoulder, only to immediately realize that she's done something wrong. She then falls to her knees and begs for forgiveness. At this point, the king goes to Leon and asks why he is not ensured that his knights have sufficient food to eat. Ilran jumps in and argues that it's not the captain's responsibility but her own because she was motivated by personal concerns. Although the king orders Leon to leave the room, Leon initially refuses to obey the order. The monarch warns him that his statements will not be repeated, ultimately resulting in Leon leaving the kingdom. Now that he and Ilran are alone, the king questions her about why she's put her health to the side while participating in the empire's duties. Ilran shares that she's put on weight recently and decided to lose part of it. The king reprimands her and emphasizes that she should not let her outward appearance affect her performance as a knight. After receiving a nod of assent from her, the king motions to an empty chair close by and invites her to join him there. She initially balks, but in the end she agrees to comply. The monarch makes a request for food for Ilran, at which point the chef is called, and several different foods such as pudding, pizza, and fresh juices are served in front of her. Because he realized that she must have been starving for days, he insists that she eat the meal offered to her. Ilran, upset by the smell, fights off the impulse to throw up and avoids eating. However, out of worry that the monarch may suspect her, she grudgingly starts eating to dispel any uncertainties that he might have. Fearing the king's inspection, Ilran reluctantly decides to consume part of the meal. She forced herself to eat, aware that the king's stare stayed fixated on her, refusing to abandon her until she finished her meal. Leon enters the room just as she struggles with the food, falling to his knees and begging the king for pardon for abandoning his knights. Ilran is perplexed by Leon's behavior because she believes her illness is entirely to blame for her worsening health. Leon approaches Ilran and begs her for forgiveness, admitting that he should have seen her deteriorating condition. The king mulls over the problem, noting that if any of his knights become ill, they must seek prompt treatment from the royal physician. Ilran is then instructed to accompany him to the royal clinic. Time passes and Ilran lies on a bed while the king waits for the physician nearby. Fear fills her as she fears her secret will be revealed with no possibility of salvation. The physician enters the room unexpectedly until Ilran's surprise, it's the same doctor from the back alley. After initially exploring the idea of a twin brother, she realizes it is the same physician. She needs clarification on how a royal physician can operate a separate clinic in a back alley while still being required in the palace. Her thoughts are interrupted when the doctor begins to examine her. He notifies the king of the findings of the examination. Ilran closes her eyes, unable to muster to hear the truth. The physician informs the king that Ilran has slight food poisoning and acute indigestion, most likely due to eating something rotten on festival night. Ilran agrees, marveling at how the doctor lies to protect her in front of the monarch. The monarch instructs his chef to prepare the required diet for his knight, expressing his displeasure at having any sick members in his army. Ilran devours the meal like a wild beast in a ferocious state, briefly forgetting the king's presence. She quickly stops eating and looks at the king, realizing her impropriety. Before leaving the room, the king rises and tells her to take better care of herself. The cook observes that she barely saw the king staring at them and that it is the first time she's seen him grin. Ilran seeks consolation in the royal bed, hoping to sleep, but her mind wanders back to another time when the king smiled, when they were close and he shouted out someone's name. She shakes her head, unable to recollect what word he said, attempting to ignore the memories and drift into oblivion. However, the king enters the room discreetly while she's sleeping. The scene proceeds with the king sitting on the bed next to Ilran and playing with the strands of her hair. Ilran is jolted awake by his presence, and she quickly concludes that it must be impossible for the king to be in her room, believing it must be a dream instead. She's startled by his presence. She tries to fall back asleep by closing her eyes, but the king continues his act, this time with a smile on his face. She eventually gives up and succumbs to sleep. Ilran wakes up and sits up, expressing her skepticism and wondering aloud how the king could visit her in her dreams. In answer, he tenderly touches her chin while gazing into her eyes and admits that he's been thinking about her a lot. When Ilran finally opens her eyes, she finds that she's been dreaming the entire time. A few days later, Ilran tells Leon that she's concluded that the king is a terrible man, while walking together in the corridor. Leon nods in agreement and acknowledges that it would be unreasonable to expect compassion from him. Nevertheless, he notes that the king appears to have a soft place for Ilran. As they make their way back to the king's chambers, they continue to carry on their discussion. The monarch inquires about the responsibilities he bestowed upon them, and both respond positively. The monarch interviews them to learn why they've gathered together despite having varied roles to play in the kingdom. Amid their journey to see His Majesty, Leon improvises a story in which they say they ran into each other by chance. The king is content with the explanation, so he orders Leon to return to his post, and Leon complies with the instruction. Soon after, a lady walks in and tells the king that Baron Fabian's daughter wants to talk with him. She does this as soon as she enters the chamber. Because he's deeply involved in what he's reading, the monarch requests that the woman waits without looking at him. After waiting a while, he and Ilran entered the guest room. When the Baron's daughter stood up to speak, the monarch cut her off and demanded that she get right to the point. The Baron's daughter was attempting to introduce herself. She added that the king had ordered her to find the girl he had spent the night with during the celebration, but owing to the darkness, no one remembers her identity or the qualities that distinguish her from the others. After a brief pause, she gives a sly smile before revealing that she was the one who spent the previous night with the monarch. Ilran is left standing there, bewildered by the girl's blatant falsehood, while the king's look suddenly takes on an odd quality. The girl was to be evacuated from the palace immediately, and the king left the chamber without saying a word as he turned his head and started walking out of the room. Walking alongside the king at the time, Ilran makes the most of the chance by asking him what he would do if he found out that the woman with whom he had spent the night was pregnant. The monarch takes a moment to pause and looks at the girl before adamantly declaring that a scenario like that would never happen, and labeling the child's assertion as a fabrication. While he moves forward, Ilran stays put, her hand resting on her stomach as she thinks about the possibility that the truth will never be revealed. He keeps moving forward. Emperor Kylart says the person would be lying, and he would punish them for it. Hearing things, Elon thinks that secret can never come to light. Leonhardt sees Elon right and asks her if she's sick. Elon says she's fine and is just tired. Leon's sister Arisa arrives and he acts cold towards her. Arisa says Elon is just as serious as Leonhardt, who tells her to say why she's there. Arisa says she came to see the Emperor and goes off. Leonhardt asks Arisa if the noble's daughter who met the Emperor was Mickey, but she feigns ignorance and leaves. Elon asks who Mickey is, and Leonhardt says that they're scum who confirm rumors to check the Emperor's response and use innocent people. Elon is shocked to see what Leonhardt thinks of his sister. Leonhardt says he thinks of her as a snake-like child and tells her to keep her distance from her. Elon thinks that it's time for the Emperor to meet the Empress, and he's become more tolerant of people, but to ensure that it's safe, Mickey has to be sacrificed, and it's scary that she would be sent with a chance to be killed, just to gain an advantage. While sleeping, Kyler comes in her dream again, telling her to sleep and stay healthy. She calls him Majesty, but he tells her to call him Kyle as a term of affection. She wonders why he's talking like that and calls him Kyle. Kyle asks where it hurts, and she says that she's just pathetic. She's dreaming this because she wants it. Kyle hugs her and assures that it isn't pathetic. She asks him what he talked with Arisa about, but he tells her to wait a bit, and she wishes her dream would never end. Elon's body is recovering, but her heart feels uneasy due to the court physician, Arisa coming more, but mainly because of her dream. Even though she's tired from her work, she still gets harassed in her dreams and wishes for her heart to become sunny. She begins dreaming and finds herself sitting in Kyle's lap, and she realizes that in reality she must be sleeping in front of the Emperor and leaving him unguarded, so she decides to immediately wake up. Elon wakes up and looks for the Emperor, but jumps up when he realizes that she's sitting in his lap. She kneels and apologizes to him and wonders how she fell asleep on his lap. She wonders if she's still dreaming and calls Kyle to see his response. Arisa has seen all this and leaves as Elon looks towards her. Elon wonders how much Arisa had seen, and Kyle says that this is annoying. Hearing his cold voice, she realizes he isn't Kyle and decides not to confuse reality with dreams, as it will ruin her peaceful life. Kyle tells Elon that her escort task ends with the night's dinner and orders her to return to her original post. Alon wonders why she's keeping her by his side till she gets better, and she likes it but also feels sad as she feels she's losing something, and wonders if it's because of the child as the problem isn't solved yet. She thinks she can't lose focus and wonders what Kyle would think about the child's problem, and decides to stop thinking about Kyle and making herself sad and decides to be happy about being away from the Emperor. Arisa cries and tramples over some flowers, sad at what she had just seen. Alon hopes Arisa won't have a weird misunderstanding and eats alone due to not wanting to make others worry about her, and celebrates being away from the Emperor and gets excited eating a tangerine. Leonhard sees Alon alone and calls her, which surprises her, making her drop the tangerine. She thinks normally she would have caught it. Leonhard sees Alon crying and asks if it's because she's still in pain and if she's hurting anywhere. Alon thinks she can't say she's crying because the tangerine got dirt on it and remembers that because the way the body changes during pregnancy, she won't be able to control her emotions and blames her pregnancy. Seeing the captain worry about her, she decides to stop crying and says that she's fine, and remembers that she bought extra tangerines. Leonhard wipes her tears and tells her to stop crying. The others are shocked at the captain acting so kind. Alon tries to stop herself, but she blurts out that the captain scared her, causing her to drop the tangerine, which confuses him. The others think that they heard wrong, and Alon thinks she's gone mad and thinks everyone will think she's weird. Leonhard apologizes to her, saying he was careless and asks why the tangerine was so special. Leon thinks she bought it only to eat it and there wasn't anything special. Leonhard says he won't be able to cover up her wound and takes responsibility. Alon asks how he'll do that. Leonhard says Alon must be going through a hard time, so they should leave, and says he's serious about letting him know what's bothering her and wants to be her pillar of support and leaves, saying he doesn't want to make it hard for her. Alon is glad it ended well for her and feels bad for troubling everyone, and didn't realize she couldn't control her emotions this much. The next day, Alon sees a large amount of tangerine, which is a gift from the captain, and they aren't all of them. Alon is happy that Leonhard gave her so many tangerines, but it's impossible for her to eat them on her own. The others cry that they will turn orange eating so many tangerines. Alon brings some tangerines to the men who try to decline, but another man takes them and accepts it, saying he will eat them all. Alon puts the basket back and thinks about going to the armory and swinging a sword. The physician told her to take it easy, but thinks it should be fine as she reduced the hours of her training. Suddenly, a person pushes her off the stairs and she worries about the baby. She gets up wondering who did it and thinks of going to the palace. She tries to get up but can't move from the pain, so she tries to call for help but can't due to the severity of her abdominal pain. She thinks that Kyle is coming to help her, but it turns out to be Leonhard. She says to go to the palace, but he says the infirmary in the knight's quarters is closer, but she insists about the palace and he carries her. She wonders why she saw Kyle's face and wonders if she wanted him to come help her, and she can't stop thinking about him. Alon lies in pain as Leonhard brings a doctor and tells him to check on her, saying she was kidnapped at work. He tells her to make herself comfortable and asks the captain to step out, but he refuses. But the doctor pushes him out, asking for a clean towel and hot water. He asks her what happened and she says that she fell down the stairs. He takes a look and says that the baby is fine and tells her that she'll be fine after some medicine. Suddenly, the captain enters and Alon gets up in pain. The doctor asks about the towels and the hot water, and he says he told a servant. The doctor says someone else knowing the information would make things complicated. Leonhard asks if it's true, but the doctor tries feigning ignorance, but Leonhard asks again, and the doctor says he hates quick-witted people because of things like this. Leonhard asks why she hid that, and she says she can't say why. Leonhard asks who the father is, and she refuses to answer. He asks if she will keep it alone, and she says she will do so. Alon wonders if she should leave the palace hoping to make money with a neighborhood watch and if the captain will keep her secret, and thinks about begging him. Leonhard asks to be the dad, surprising everyone. Alon asks Leonhard if he likes her, and he says he thought she was cool ever since he saw her, which makes her happy. Alon says she has no reason to accept his feelings, but he tells her not to rush, saying he will stay by her side, and leaves to go get some hot water for her. Alon asks the doctor if she's dreaming, who says this is reality. She wonders if the captain was serious about what he said. Outside, the captain punches a wall in anger. The doctor sees the captain taking his anger out on a wall and understands it, as he doesn't even know who the father is, and he has to let the woman he loves go. The doctor sees a shadow and asks if they're there to report to their owner, and wonders if they'll be punished for not protecting the target, and wonders what Alon will do now. Alon had been thinking of what to do if she got caught and is relieved that the captain is not one to probe, and he even told her to rest for a few days and thinks he's so nice. Suddenly, she smells some tasty food and goes towards the lady holding the bread. Alon thinks she shouldn't eat it, worrying about throwing up because of morning sickness, but it smells so good, so she decides to get one anyway. She takes a bite, and it tastes so good that she asks her for 10 bags. She's glad to not face morning sickness. Kyle sits deep in his thoughts when the man arrives, asking to be allowed to track the poison, but Kyle says it isn't poison, at which the man suggested maybe a curse. But Kyle stops him and summons the court physician. The physician gets thrown in front of the emperor, who asks why he's been summoned. The emperor says he's repulsed by the smell of the food, and the thought of it makes him nauseous, and asks what's wrong with him. The doctor says this isn't a poison or a curse. The men there realize what the symptoms are similar to, and the emperor understands what it actually is. At night, Alon lies in her bed, happy about the meat pie she ate, and says eating it was so fun and wants every day to be like this. Kyle again appears in her dreams, saying he wants to visit every day, but he's been busy lately, saying he had a lot of things to do. Alon looks at him and worries about being so thin, and says his arms look dry and asks if he's hurt anywhere. He replies he doesn't know and changes the topic, saying that it's good she's gained weight, and asks what happened to her. Alon cheerfully says she's been having good meals lately and talks about the steak she had for dinner. Kyle asks if she likes meat, and Alon says she does and tells Kyle to always eat what he craves. He sets his head in her lap and agrees to do it. Kyle asks Alon if she would accept someone's proposal, at which she thinks she needs to give a proper reason to Leonhardt, and says she'll probably end up rejecting him. Kyle begins touching Alon's thigh, and she says she doesn't like it, at which she says she can touch him too, to be even, and asks her to stay with him. The next morning, Alon gets up and quickly runs to the market and gets so sad that the stall selling chicken skewers isn't open. Alon tells the doctor about it, who tells her to eat whatever she wants. Suddenly, Leonhardt enters, saying he will help her, and she thinks it would be easier but feels inappropriate as they're still on duty. The doctor says he's free, so he will go by them, making her very happy, and she thanks him. Later, the doctor shows her the chicken skewers, but she apologizes, saying he can't eat it and says she wants fruits now. The doctor says it's natural for her cravings to frequently change and goes to buy the fruits while eating the skewers. The doctor hands her the fruits and she asks how he got them so quickly, and he says he has connections. Alon wonders what kind of connections he has and thinks he's suspicious. Despite the confidentiality contract, she can't relax, and he also knew about her recovery and improvement in health. So she thinks someone is keeping an eye on her and thinks it may be the doctor or Arisa, as she had been spiteful towards all the women who approached the emperor and had seen her in the emperor's lap. She goes to ask the captain, but is surprised to find that he has been dispatched to a different region. He has gone to the northern district, and the vice captain will be covering his position. The northern district has suffered from a barbarian invasion, and normally the Imperial Knights would guard the emperor, so she wonders why he went there and thinks that it's a punishment. The doctor greets her and asks him about Leonhardt on the off chance she knows, and she suspects his eyes as he says he doesn't know. She runs, thinking nothing is working out for her, and thinks to leave, wondering why she keeps dreaming about Kyle and feels disheartened. Alon's resignation gets rejected on the basis that her diagnosis has to be accredited by 3 members of the Imperial Clinic, but she would get caught then, which will lead to her death at the hands of the Emperor or Arisa. If she stays, she will get caught due to the physical changes of her body, so she decides to run away at night. She decides to camp and sits atop a tree to not be spotted, and tries to rest despite being uncomfortable, and spots Shadow Knights below, and thinks they are after her. The Shadow Knights go away and she decides to rest. Kyle appears in her dream and asks why she left. She says she felt her health declining, at which Kyle says he will hire the best physicians to treat her and asks her to come back. But she thinks this kind Kyle is only in her dreams and the real Emperor is a cruel man, and says that she can't be treated and she won't tell him about the illness. He angrily asks her if she ran away because she hates him, and he grabs her stomach, and says there's nothing he doesn't know, so she shouldn't lie to her, and asks if she's pregnant with his child. Kyle says he will forgive her if she returns and asks her to stay with his side as it's their child, and he is known from the beginning. Alon realizes that it's both a dream and reality. Kyle says that she is the mother of his child, and in the future she will stand with his side and the child will be his successor. She refuses, saying despite him knowing he only watched her in his dream, and says she hates liars. Kyle then says that she'll bring her back with force and she jolts awake. She tries to get back to her horse, but a Shadow Knight appears, saying the Emperor has called for her, and if she runs now it will be considered treason and they don't want to hurt her, so they ask her not to fight. Alon stabs the knight in the head and tries to run away and thinks Kyle's been keeping an eye on her through her dreams. And she suffered through so much for no reason, and he acted so kind to her in her dream, and he wants her to be his empress, and she cries that he just watched her suffer. She manages to hide and thinks what to do as Kyle will appear if she falls asleep. Thinking Kyle casted a spell, she decides to Elin, the city of sages, to deal with it, and dyes her hair black to stay under the radar. Ilan enters Elaine, the city of sages, and tries to find a sage who can help her. The sage says the spell connects the caster with the one they love through their dreams. Ilan asks if there's a way to undo it, but the mage says that there's no known way to break it. And one work around it is to travel far away from its caster, and if she distanced herself from the caster, the ability to connect in dreams would weaken. Ilan thanks him for help and leaves. Ilan thinks to run farther away, but her stomach is beginning to show, and eventually it will get hard for her to move. Kyle is angry at his Shadow Knights and orders to send a notice to find Ilan, and close the borders, and says she must not be harmed no matter what. Kyle thinks Ilan wasn't close to the Knights with her, so if he takes them hostage, she wouldn't bat an eye. Ilan is now wanted for the crime of treason against the Imperial family. Leonhard is shown a wanted poster of Ilan, which confuses him, but he remembers Ilan being worried and not telling him who the father is. And he realizes that the Emperor may be the father of Ilan's child, as the Imperial position was assigned to her, and wonders why she ran away and thinks if she really loved him, there'd be no reason for her to flee, and it doesn't make sense, and wonders if she had any say in it and if she's scared. Leonhard had lost his parents in an accident due to the Emperor's doing, and he had vowed revenge. But now he's losing another loved one to him and gets angry and decides to return to the capital and stay with the Emperor to get more information. He gets a message that the Emperor is requesting his return to the capital, and he wonders what the Emperor is scheming, and he thinks it's his chance now. A few months later, Ilan gets told to take a break. Ilan now goes by the name of Ron and gets told to take care of her health. At first, everyone had kept their distance from her, but once they heard that the father of the child rejected her, they warmed up to her, but she's still having a hard time getting used to their kindness. A woman asks her about prenatal care, but she doesn't know about it. She explains that everything she does affects the baby inside her, so she needs to ensure that she has a positive effect on it. So she should look at beautiful things and say lovely words. The woman jokes that the way Ren speaks reminds her of how soldiers speak, and says she should tell her baby how much she loves them. She thinks about it and begins talking nicely to her unborn baby, saying she loves them and wants to live a happy life with them and thinks to make sure they'll have a wonderful life. Time passed by and she went through a lot of hardships while carrying the baby, but thanks to the help of the villagers, she was able to get through it, and eventually she successfully gave birth to twins, a girl and a boy. She has decided to name her daughter Leanne and son Enril, and gets happy that she can use both names and tells her kids that they will have a wonderful life together. Ilan tries to put Enril to sleep and she realizes her eyes are sparkling gold just like the Emperor's. She was worried she wouldn't be able to love her babies if they resembled the Emperor, but she has no problem now. Enril is quiet and mild-mannered, while Leanne is full of energy, and the twins are too different from each other. She thinks they won't end up like the Emperor as they are her children. Ilan thinks that raising two babies is hard, and they are getting heavier, and have such big appetites that she has to feed them goat's milk. But she's glad to see that they are growing well. She's a nightmare about the Emperor finding her and wakes up to see her babies. Ilan walks over to her sleeping babies and says that she will protect them. Two Shadow Knights enter the room, but they just missed Ilan, and they say she's really good at hiding her traces. One of them finds a doll indicating that Ilan has a child with her and then moves out as they don't want to disappoint the Emperor once more. Ilan makes food for the kids who are now 5 years old. They have been constantly moving from one place to the other. As the kids got older, it became easier to move around. But they can't live like this forever, but she hopes Kyle has given up on trying to find her. Someone knocks on the door and Ilan tells the kids to keep eating and she goes to check who it is. She recognizes the voice and replies that no one is home. Leanne springs up and asks if it's Mr. Alver, and Ilan says no. Leanne recognizes him from the voice and goes to open the door. Alver thanks Leanne for opening the door and gives her some meat as a present. Alver was part of a group of strangers who came to the town who thought they were runaway aristocrats, so people kept their distance at first. But due to Alver's personality, they warmed up to him in no time. But she still hasn't. Ilan tells Leanne to finish her food. Later, Ilan prepares to go out, but Alver wants to help her pick the basket up. Ilan says that if he knows where he's going, and says that she's going to dig up some herbs. Ilan says she doesn't have to come with, but he says he wants to. Leanne also wants to go, so she says that they will all go. While leaving, a woman asks where they're going, and Ilan responds that they're going to the mountains, at which she warns them of the wild boars. A group of men gossip about the state of the country and foreigners poking around looking for someone. Hearing that, she gets worried that the Shadow Knights are still looking for her, but decides to not fall into panic from a few rumors. She sees Alvair spacing out and thinks he hates the Empire and jabs at him. They are picking up herbs when suddenly a wild boar appears. The boar is injured as it's running away from a hunter. Elan realizes the danger and tells Elaine and Enril to be quiet. The boar approaches Elan, who thinks she can take it down even without a weapon, but that risks Alvair finding out she used to be at night. So she decides to act like an ordinary human and run away and acts weak. Alvair says he will handle it, but Elan thinks he's being an idiot. Alvair takes his sword out and goes to attack the boar, but the boar ignores him and heads towards Elan. But she isn't scared and thinks that even though it's been a while since she has used a weapon, the boar should be no problem for her and prepares to fight it with her knife. The boar heads towards her and she brings it down with a single strike and then hands the bloody knife to Alvair and checks on her kids. The hunters arrive and ask Alvair if he's the one who killed the boar, but he points to Elan saying she's the one who killed it. But she says that Alvair took care of everything. Alvair gets the hint and says he's the one who killed the boar, making the hunters amazed he did it with only a dagger. And Enril says that his mom was the one who killed the boar and she says no, at which Leanne says Elan told them to not lie. But she says this kind of lie is fine. Leanne asks if it's because the Demon King will come after them and people find out who they are, and she says yes, so that they will keep the secret. Once the kids got old enough, Elan told them that a bad man is chasing after them, so they think an evil Demon King is after them, and they think to wait until they get older to tell the whole story. Alvair tells Elan that the hunters left and butchered the boar and gave them a portion of it, at which Elan tells him to have it. Alvair tells her to keep it as a present. Elan thinks she won't have to worry about meat and leather now and wonders what to do with the fang. She'd asked the merchant to sell it, but he refused, and no one is going to the city, so she decides to go to the city the next day to gather information while trying to sell it, and tells the kids she will be back soon. After selling the herb, she decides to buy the things she needs, but decides to rest first. She begins dreaming, and as she falls asleep when she sits down, and Kyle enters her dream. Elan turns around and sees Kyle, who asks her if she dyed her hair brown. He says he's been looking everywhere for her. Elan realizes it isn't a nightmare, and the fact he appeared in her dream means he's close by. Kyle says Elan keeps trying to get away from him, but she says she only went where she wanted to and tells him it's useless for him to try and track her, and tells him to stop chasing after her as she's willing to spend the night of the festival with her, but he had no choice in what happened after it. Kyle asks if she was ever interested in him, at which she thinks she was drawn to him, but after she learned that he planned everything from the shadows, she became afraid of him. Elan lies that she was never interested in him, but Kyle tells her that she will return to the Empire with him and asks what happened to the child, and she lies saying she couldn't give birth to them. Kyle says it's fine as they can always make another one and tells her to follow her. Elan thinks something's wrong as Kyle's a lot calmer than usual, and thinks he may be doing something in the real world and wakes up from the dream by falling off her chair, and thinks if she goes home she may be followed, so she decides to shake off the people following her. Late at night, the kids discussing turn on the lights, but Elan had told them not to do so in the alone, but they still light a candle and decide to blow it out before sleeping. From the outside, loud noises appear, but they quickly stop. Alvair knocks on the door asking for Rand, but the kids say she's gone out and he leaves telling them to say they don't know anything in case someone comes around asking. Leanne opens the door and sees the yard's a mess and then closes the door, but a shadow knight keeps them from doing so. The knight asks the kids if they live there and asks about Albert, but they don't know anything. Leonhardt says that anyone who rebels is to be arrested and says to arrest them as the rebels came, so they must be involved. Leonhardt thinks the kids look like someone he knows and asks for their names. He wonders if these kids are the kids Elaine had with the Emperor and heads to the Emperor, and wonders how hard it was for her to raise them on her own. The knight tells the Emperor that they found the two kids who appear to be involved with the rebels and they arrested them as they may know something. Leanne thinks that the Emperor is the evil one from the stories. The Emperor asks Leanne her age and she answers that it's 5 years old. The Emperor asks how the Elan search is going and the knight reports that she was living in the village but moved recently. The Emperor says for the kids to be given a bath. Enril asks to be let go and if he will eat them. The knight says the Emperor doesn't eat humans, at which he asks if they will be tortured, at which the knight says the Emperor doesn't torture without a reason. He then gets up and says that they look like their mother, and he knows her well and asks if they know who their father is, and they say they don't. The Emperor thinks Elan still rejects him, and he says that they look like each other. Enril blurts out that they aren't the evil Emperor's kids, at which he says they are, saying they look like each other. The kids begin crying, and the knight says that he will take them away, but the Emperor stops him and says he will get something for them to eat. But they worry it is poison, but they eat it in the end and realize it's delicious. After eating, the kids fall asleep, and the Emperor tells everyone to leave. 2 days later, Alon sees that Enril and Leanne are gone and sees Leonhardt and attacks him, asking where her children are. He tells her that the kids are with the Emperor and tells her to run away, but she refuses to leave until she finds her children. Leonhardt says that there are Shadow Knights hiding around there, that they will detain her once they get a chance, and says he will give an opening to her to slash him and run away, and asks her to trust him. She slashes him and runs away, hoping to save her kids. The man who was helping Elvira draws her to him and praises her skills to avoid others. He had always avoided her, but now he's helping her. Elvira spots a checkpoint with the army's guerrilla unit and can't believe that they're following the Emperor's orders so much, and thinks that they aren't the only one being chased and suspects Alon. Vern brings Alon's to her and he greets her, but she acts cold to him. Alon gets angry that Elvira hasn't found the twins yet and says she needs to go find her kids, but Elvira tells her it'll be impossible for her to find them on her own and asks to be allowed to help her. But she says the Empire is searching for him, so them being together will make things complicated. Elvira tries to convince Alon, but she says that she's done thinking that Elvira isn't trying to help her with pure intentions, and they see the Empire as their enemy, is afraid of them finding out who her kids really are. Vern tries to convince Alon too, but Elvira stomps him, and as Alon leaves, he tells her that they will start moving at dawn 2 days later. Vern asks Elvira why he wants to help her so much, at which he says that they're the ones to blame and the kids got caught up because of them, so they need to stay true to their beliefs. Alon thinks that the Emperor has stepped out of the Empire's borders with a small number of soldiers, which is a perfect time for Elvira to make a move, and thinks to get back in shape. Suddenly, she finds Leonhardt behind her who tells her to relax and puts his weapon down, and says he wants to know if he can help her in any way. Alon asks if he isn't trying to drag her back to the Emperor, as he is his loyal knight, but he says her security comes first and says that the Emperor had killed his parents, and he had to pledge his loyalty to survive. She asks him why he trusts her, and he says that he loves her, and his proposal still stands. Alon tells him to stop teasing her and asks if her kids are safe. Leonhardt tells her that they are with the Emperor and are safe and unharmed, hearing that, which gets her relieved. Leonhardt says they must have realized who the kids' parents are so they are unharmed. Alon goes to find her children and Leonhardt asks if he can help, but she declines. Alon thinks her body is regaining its muscle memory and plans to save her children during the chaos 2 days later due to Elvira's plan. Later at night, Kyle wonders why the kids are sleeping on his bed and thinks he mistook them for Alon in their sleep. He sleeps and meets Alon in a dream and she grabs him asking about her kids. The Emperor hands Alana a weapon and advances forward himself. He tells her not to push herself. Alana is surprised to find that the Emperor is going to fight himself. An enemy advances towards him, declaring that the Emperor is the enemy of his kingdom. Both strike their swords. The Emperor refuses to recall doing anything to his kingdom. He further says to come at him if he wants to kill him. Both of them dash outside while fighting. Alana tells the children to hide under the bed as it is dangerous. She tells them to wait until she comes back and rushes outside. She finds the Emperor fighting two men. A man is about to stab him when Alana repels the attack and stands back to back with the Emperor. She notices the blood on his back and realizes that the Emperor is fighting despite his poor condition. She tells the Emperor that it is dangerous and continues to fight. The Emperor thinks she is even more beautiful when she wields the sword. They both keep fighting until morning when the reinforcements arrive. She's asking about his condition when the Emperor falls down. With his head in her lap, she calls out to him. The Emperor tells her not to worry. Alon says he does not look okay at all. She plans to call a physician when Leonhard arrives. He shows her a dark expression after looking at the situation and clenches his fist around the sword. He apologizes for being late and asks about their situation. Alon tells him that she's fine, but the Emperor moved around too much and his wounds reopen. Leonhard suggests moving the Emperor to another location and Alon agrees. The Emperor grabs her hand and calls out to her while smiling. Alon wonders why she does not want the Emperor to die like this. The Emperor wakes up and finds himself on the bed. Alon is holding his hand and sleeping with her head on the bed. The Emperor remembers the pain he felt while looking for her for the last few years. He thinks that if these wounds can keep her shackled to him, he will even risk his life for that purpose. Leonhard tells his subordinate that he will survey the area. He dashes thinking about Alon and how she cared for the Emperor and then slams his hand on the tree. He thought that Alon hated the Emperor, but there was a chance that she forgave him. He wanted to kill the Emperor. He laughed out loud, saying that she was acting more like Arisa by the day. He then thinks that Alon might be returning the favor by saving her, as she does not like to be indebted to anyone. He says that he needs to act more quickly if he's going to obtain what he wants. Alvair is angry about the failure of his plan. He blocked all paths to keep the messengers from going out, but the Emperor still called for backup. He suspects that the information was leaked and believes that the sponsors assisting him may be responsible. He concludes that the sponsor might have changed his plans because he was afraid that Alon might die. He cannot lose hope and give up now. Alon wakes up and finds herself lying next to the Emperor while holding his hand. The king of the nation comes to see the Emperor, so Alon wakes him up. The king apologizes for coming late and offers to escort the Emperor to the Empire. The Emperor glares at him and refuses his offer. A shadow assassin tells Alon about their plan to continue the journey, and she asks about the Emperor's condition. The Emperor ordered the shadow to not tell her about his recovery, so the shadow tells her that the Emperor wanted to get her and the children out of danger. Alon is worried about the Emperor. She tells the children that they are going to the Empire. The children are excited and hug her. She tells them that she's going somewhere and will be back soon. She goes to meet the Emperor and meets Leonhard outside his tent. Leonhard averts his gaze. She thinks that he is unwell. She enters the tent and watches the Emperor changing his bandages. She asks about the physician, but the Emperor says that he's capable of doing this on his own, so he sends the physician back. She notices that the ointment has not been applied to the wounds because his hand cannot reach his back and offers to help. She applies the ointment and notices the Emperor trembling. She always thought that he could not feel pain. She tells him to lift his arms and she bandages his wounds. She asks if he's really going back to the Empire in this condition. The Emperor affirms and says that she's hoping that his condition will get worse, causing him to die. However, he finally reunited with her, so he will not die now. She is shocked to hear that as she was worried about him since he got hurt. She shows a painful expression and tells him that he has not changed. The Emperor looks at her and says that he is how he is. In the carriage, Alon sits with her children. She avoids the Imperial Knight because she does not want to be recognized. The children are excited to see the knights and ask if their mother is a princess. She tells them that she is not the princess, but she once was a knight who protected her master. When the children ask about her master, she tells them that it is a secret. The children ask if the black-haired man is a demon king. She tells them he is not and asks if he bothered them. The children say that he told them that he was their father. Alon goes pale, but the children are understanding and tells her to say it later if she is uncomfortable. Her heart softens to find that her children are being considerate of her. They arrive at the palace, but Alon is worried about getting out of the carriage. And there's many people outside. 2 shadow assassins arrive and give her a hood to wear. Alon does not understand if the Emperor is being considerate of her or what he's thinking. They take Alon and the kids to a beautiful room. The children see the huge bed and start jumping on it excitedly. Alon tells them to not make too much noise when someone knocks at the door. She goes to check to find Leonhard standing in front of the door. He says he wants to tell her something. She tells him to not call her by the title as she's no longer a knight. Leonhard tells her to also just call him Leonhard or just Leon. Alon wonders if they are so close to start calling each other so casually. He asks if she still remembers what he said to her. Alon remembers him asking if he could be the father of the child. She says she does remember, but that it's not possible now, and that was a long time ago. He tells her that his feelings have not changed. He wants to be someone who can be relied on. He asks why she's trying to go where he cannot reach her, having tears in his eyes. He moves to grab her hand when someone calls him from behind. He hopes to listen to a different answer the next time he asks and leaves. Alon gets conflicted and sits down. Alon returns to the room and finds that the children are asleep because they are tired from the journey. She also plans to go to sleep but remembers what Leonhard said about her going out of reach. She wonders about it for some time, then goes to sleep. The Emperor wakes her up and she's surprised to find him in her room. She soon realizes that it is a dream. She tells him not to invade her dreams. He asks her what she and Leonhardt were talking about. She tells him that he was worried about her as a colleague, but the Emperor already knows that they're on a first-name basis, and suggests she only remain a colleague. The next day, Alana is tired because she cannot sleep. They arrive at Aledo, the capital of the Empire, and the Emperor offers her his hand, but she refuses. He tells her that she's going to be living in the Wind Palace. Alana's confused because only the Empress is supposed to live in the Wind Palace. The Emperor says that she's going to be an Empress soon, and this makes Alana beyond shocked. The Emperor shows her around the palace. He takes them to the children's room and a room for Alana. Alana gets a feeling that someone was using this room. The Emperor introduces the headmaid of Wind Palace, Malaka, and leaves. Alana wants to ask her about it, but she stops herself. Enril finds Kyle written on a book in his room and shows it to Leanne. They think that this is the name of the person who used to live in this room and find more stuff with the name on it. Alana arrives and the children show her as well. She remembers the time when the Emperor said he used to read books. At that time, she thought that he was lying to gain sympathy. She thinks that even if the Emperor had a tough childhood, that does not excuse all of the cruel things that he has done. The more one gets to know a person, the more he sympathizes with them. That is why she did not want to know more about the Emperor. The children ask if they know this person, but she refuses and tells them to clean up. Malaka enters the room and invites them for dinner. On the way, Leah notices a cloth portrait and asks about it. Malaka tells them that it is the portrait of the previous resident of the palace. Leanne wants to look at it, so Malaka removes the cloth. She tells them that the woman in the portrait is the previous mistress of the Wind Palace, Eugene, and her son, Kylart. The children become excited to know that the boy is Kyle. Alana tells them to keep it a secret because they read the book without Kyle's permission and he would not be happy about it. Malaka tells them not to worry as he would not be angry to use his things because the children are adorable. Alana also thinks so, but she wants to keep the children away from the Emperor. Arisa sits in her room. She belongs to the Crescent family who helped the Emperor rise to the throne after he was abandoned as a prince. She wants all the love and power. A servant tells her that food was delivered to the Wind Palace. She tells them to investigate as no one is allowed to go to that palace. Rumors started about the new resident in the Wind Palace. Alana realizes and gets worried because the nobles will try to harm her and the children. She wants to get out of here but cannot get away from Malaka. The children are playing in the garden when Leanne finds a black pony. She pets the pony, but Enril is worried that it might belong to someone and tells her not to touch it. The Emperor arrives and asks if they like it. Leanne praises the pony for its beauty. The Emperor shows them a white pony and tells them that they can ride these as they are the owners now. The children ask Alana if they can ride them. Alana realizes that these are Persian ponies that are very expensive. She wants to refuse the gift, but the children love ponies so much that she cannot do so. The Emperor asks Alana if she would like to come with the children to ride ponies. She tells them that it's hard to take care of 2 children, so she goes. The Emperor smiles after hearing that. Alana is reminded of the portrait when she thinks that the Emperor has been smiling a lot after arriving here. The Emperor helps Leanne to sit on the pony and she thanks him. She also apologizes for calling him the Demon King before. The Emperor is happy to hear that. Alana also thanks him for saving the children. The Emperor turns his face after hearing that. Alana is curious to know why he hid his face. The children ask the Emperor how they should address him because their mother calls him Your Majesty. He tells them to call him Kylart. The children ask if he is Kyle. The Emperor affirms him as Kyle. The children become excited and ask if he likes storybooks because there are a lot of books in the room. He tells him that he likes books with dragons in them. They start asking him other questions as well, but Alana tells them not to ask many questions at once. She notices the Emperor smiling and happy. The Emperor tells them to continue the conversation in the shade as the sun is getting hot. The children follow the Emperor. Alana thinks that he looks more like a father as she watches them leave. She soon comes to track and thinks that this should not be a touching sense. The Emperor is only being nice to the children to make her lower her guard. The Emperor notices her not moving and asks if she's coming with, calling her a rabbit. She is shocked that he would call her a rabbit in front of the children. He tells her that she looks like the pet rabbit he had when he was young. Alana is put out after hearing that and asks if he likes her because she looks like his pet. The Emperor tells her that he was attracted to her from the start when she was cursing her superior behind his back. Alana tells him to stop, but Leanne says she wants to hear more. The Emperor asks if she's attracted to him after hearing that. Alana says that he lied to her and locked her up in the palace, so how can she feel attraction for him? The Emperor tells her that she's not locked, she can go whenever she wants as long as she does not take the children with her. He knows that she will not run away without her children. Alana goes out of the Wind Palace and meets Leonhardt coincidentally. He tells her not to let her guard down around the Emperor as he's being nice for now. Arisa gets informed about Alana living in the Wind Palace with her 2 children. She gets angry and decides to go to the Imperial Castle. Arisa burst into the palace, determined to talk to the Emperor calmly and rationally, even though she is fuming right now. She comes across Leonhardt, who asks why she is in such a hurry. Leonhardt tells her to go home, but she refuses, saying that she would not listen to him just because he's her brother. He tells her that if she went to visit the Emperor, she would only get hurt. When she asks the reason, he tells her that the Emperor has no feelings for her whatsoever. He only used her to get rid of the other women who approached him and use her because she was convenient. Arisa listens to him with great shock and tells him she is still gonna see the Emperor. She would only be sure if she hears these words from the Emperor himself. Leonhardt watches her leave and comments that she's only setting herself up to get hurt. Arisa arrives in front of the door, but the Shadow Assassins tell her that she's not allowed to enter because the Emperor ordered to not let the outsiders in. She gets angry and tells them to tell the Emperor that she is here. The Shadow Assassins leave to notify the Emperor while she stands outside, thinking that the Emperor would never shut her out. The Shadow Assassins tell him that she may enter for a brief moment, so she happily enters and greets the Emperor. When the Emperor finds that she has no purpose to visit, he tells her not to come unannounced, for they do not have that kind of relationship. She snaps, saying that she was going to be the Empress, but the Emperor says he had no such intentions. Arisa leaves crying but comes across Alon and threatens her to snatch what she has because she did the same. Alon gives her a warning to not hurt her loved ones or she would pay the price. However, Arisa is determined to not give up. Alver finds out that the one living in the Wind Palace is Alon and she is the Emperor's weakness. He plans to use her and the Crescent family against the Emperor, but since Leonhardt is loyal to the Emperor, they can use Arisa for that purpose. Alon thinks that the Emperor had been cheating on Arisa with her and he plans to play with both of them and cast them aside later. She goes to talk to the Emperor, but he says that he's going to destroy the House Crescent because he does not need them anymore. She asks if doing it is alright since they helped him rise to the throne. The Emperor tells her that they were only using him for their own interest, but the fact that Leonhardt likes the land bothers the Emperor the most. Alon decides to not interfere in his decisions, but tells him that cheating is bad and scolds him for not ending things with Arisa. The Emperor admits his mistakes and she tells him to not come close to her or the children for the time being. The Emperor finds it funny the way she talked about cheating, and he is glad that she did not ask any questions, because she should only know enough to feel sympathy for him. Alon on her way back talks to herself, thinking that she only diverted the topic towards cheating, because she did not want to know about his past as that would make her sway, and she would not be able to leave him. The children look at Alon and worry that she looks down. They think that since the Emperor has not been around lately, that might be the reason. Maleka appears and asks if they can help her. They bring gifts in front of Alon, telling her that the Emperor sent them. Alon thinks that he is sending these because he cannot come physically to see them, but he will soon visit on the context that he misses them. Gifts keep coming every day, and Alon shouts on the amount of gifts he's sending her. She wonders if he is seriously not coming to see them because she told him to. She thinks that the Emperor is slowly changing. Meanwhile, she is still lingering on the past when he gave her a hard time. She decides to face the situation head-on because she is not a coward, but first she needs to know what happened to the Emperor when he was younger. She remembers that Kyle's mother was a maid, so her marriage to the previous Emperor would have caused opposition. She notices that the objects in the Wind Palace are well reserved and the servants only clean the areas that they are using, so the Emperor must have really loved his mother and that this place is full of memories for him. She enters the room he used as a child and notices a fairy tale with a happy ending written on the wall. She wonders if it was his dream to have a happy ending. The Emperor appears behind her and tells her that he is here to deliver presents. He tells her that he is planning to announce the children as the Imperial family, so this many presents are nothing. When the Emperor asks why she's snooping around and assumes that she's trying to find a way to escape, she tells him she's not going to escape and that she was looking for his traces of the past and she wants to know more about him. He says to ask him if she wants to find out, or is she afraid that it will bring him pain. He tells her that all of his emotions from his past have faded away. However, she tells him that the pain one experiences helps to grow, so she wants to know about his painful experiences. The Emperor tells her that those are all just bitter memories, but she wants to know anyway. The Emperor says that she has been stubborn for a long time, and Alon finds it unfair that he knows so much about her. He tells her that when he was younger, there was a group of assassins who kidnapped kids, train them to assassinate, brainwash them, make them take drugs, and torture them. Luckily, he was able to return to his senses, but kept following orders to sharpen his knives and got rid of everyone who hurt him one day. When Alon comments that it was terrible, he tells her that it is why he said that she would regret it if she heard. But Alon does not regret. She wanted to turn back time and comfort him. She tells him that for the safety of the children, they will not become a part of the royal family, but the Emperor tells her otherwise. She is determined to keep her children safe, and she hugs the Emperor, telling him that he survived well, and the Emperor finds it unpredictable. The agent of the House Crescent comes to visit Alver in a bar. He assumes that since she came all the way here, she must really hate the Emperor. The agent says that she wants to get someone out of the Imperial Palace. Alver tells her that it's easy, but he might be chased by the people from the palace for the rest of his life. She tells him not to worry, as that person is a commoner and would not cause trouble. Alver understands that they are just using him as bait, but decides to go along with it, asking where that person is staying. She tells him that the person is staying at the Wind Palace, a woman with pink hair. Alver smiles after hearing that. The agent gives him the information and the advance payment and tells him that they wish to bring out the woman and the children, but kidnapping the woman is the top priority. Alver agrees and tells her that it may take time because they have to prepare. Arisa praises the agent Sarah and tells her to finish the man once he does the job. Sarah gets scared, but Arisa reassures her and tells her that she would sit with her on the Empress's throne. Leonard finds it suspicious the way the rebels are moving. He knows that they need sponsorship, but are still ignoring his warnings. He is sure that they are targeting the Emperor, but are not fools enough to blindly attack him. He realizes that they might be planning to attack the residents of the Wind Palace and decides to pay more attention to Alon. The Emperor hugs Alon from behind. She asks if something happened, but he says he only wanted to hug her. Leonard watches them hug and grits his teeth. He wonders why Alon is being nice to him. Alon tells him to stop hugging and to stop sending her presents. She also reminds him that he is forbidden from seeing her. The Emperor leaves, but Alon finds his obedient behavior strange. He was also acting weird today, so she cannot figure out what he is thinking. Leonhard calls out to Alon, but before she can reply, Maleka comes forward and stops him, because the Emperor ordered to not let anyone in the Wind Palace. Alon tells her that she will talk to him for a moment. She does not call him by his first name because the Emperor wants to destroy the Crescent family, so she has to obey the Emperor and draw a line between her and Leonhard. Leonhard tells her to be careful because it is dangerous right now. Alon tells him that she already knows that the people who are targeting the Empress position are trying to eliminate her, and thanks him for his constant attention, but tells him not to pay her any more attention. He asks if she thinks that he cannot help her and shouts why she's putting distance between them. Alon tells him to keep his voice down for someone might hear him. She tells him that she's worried that he will be in danger if he keeps in touch with her. However, he says that he will not give up on her regardless. When she turns to leave, Leonhard grabs her hand and asks if she's doing this because of the Emperor. Alon gets angry and tells him to not meet again. She returns to her room, resting on the bed. She ponders about Alon and the Emperor being weird. She wakes up in a dream to find the Emperor there and tells him not to appear in her dreams. The Emperor tells her to come closer and look at him. She refuses, but the Emperor says that he took his clothes off for her. She retaliates by saying that she did not ask him to do this. The Emperor takes her hand and kisses it while she thinks that the relationship would have been different if he was not the Emperor. She tells him that he is as nice as ever, and the Emperor replies that he will be nice and tells her not to worry. The Emperor comes closer to her and she wakes up falling from the ground. She remembers the dream and realizes it was a real dream. Maleka enters the room after hearing the loud scream to find Alon on the floor. She finds that Alon sprained her wrist and calls the Imperial doctor. Alon is afraid that the doctor is that man, and she was right. Alon is blank after seeing the doctor and asks if there's no other doctor in the palace. Maleka tells her that there is, but he is the best doctor. The doctor tells her that the Emperor came to see him in a hurry, so he put everything aside and came rushing. He bandages her hand, telling her that she sprained her wrist and it will take a week to get better. The Emperor arrives to visit her but does not enter the room. Alon goes to inquire about him and tells her because she denied him visits, so he needs her permission. He asks how she got hurt and Alon blurts out it's his fault because he came to her in a dream last night. He tells her that he's been keeping his promise of not getting into her dreams and asks if she saw him in the dream. Alon denies, but he keeps asking what he did in the dream. He comes closer to her and asks if he also did something like this in the dream. Alon pushes him away, but he says that he can do anything she wants, but Alon does not want anything. A carriage stops in front of the palace gates. The guards inspect it and find that it is the regular man who brings goods into the palace. They ask about the person sitting next to him, but Alver introduces himself as the man's nephew who came to help his uncle. The guards let the carriage go after inspection. The man looks nervous, but Alver tells him to relax. They will bring his grandson back and let him escape after the work is done. The Emperor gets reported that Count Hesse will follow his orders. He wants Count Hesse to adopt Elan so that no one talks about her origin. He wants the children and Elan to have strong authority. Elan dreams of the Emperor again, and he calls her a cute rabbit. She wonders why she always dreams of the Emperor. He comes closer to her, but she wakes up when someone shouts about fire. She gets out of the room to go to the children, but finds Maleka with the children. Maleka tells her that there's a fire in the storage room. They are putting it out, but are not successful because someone poured oil. Elan realizes that this is intentional arson and asks Maleka to give her a sword because she wants to protect the children in case of a crisis. Elan explains the situation to the children and tells them to hide, like before, while hugging her. She tells them not to resist if someone finds them because they can get hurt. Maleka hands her a sword and tells her that she's going to survey the premises in case of an intruder and leaves. Maleka gets ready to fight and orders someone to stand in front of the door where Elan is and to not let the intruders escape. Two men come forward and tell her to get out of the way. She uses the sword to slash them both, telling them that they made a mistake. A person appears behind her, telling her that the intruders are better than expected. They keep ending people, so that means there's an enemy inside. Maleka steps on the fallen body, but the other man screams and runs away. She finds it weird that he ran away like that with no determination when the rebels are full of grudges and rush in spite. So it is possible they did not come in one group. She tells the shadow assassin to take care of the rest of the intruders and to keep a few of them alive to get information out of them. She heads toward Elan because she's nervous for some reason. Elan stands in her room with the children and tells them to hide, only coming out if she or the Emperor calls them, and not even coming out even if it is Maleka. She assures them that since she's a knight, she will win. The children hide in a secret passage that Elan knows nothing of, and she thinks that she could have escaped using the passage. Elan takes her sword and realizes that the enemy might be inside the palace. She worries that being part of the imperial family will put them in danger for the rest of their lives. Alver enters the room and tells her that he's here for her. If she quietly goes with him, he will not hurt her, because the person he wants to kill is only the Emperor. However, Elan does not believe him because she knows that her children have the Emperor's blood, so they would be in danger. She might have hated the Emperor at one point, but right now, she has to fight. She draws her sword on Alver and wavers, but his assistant appears from behind, repeating the words that Alver said a moment ago. Alver signs, saying that he did not want to fight. Since it is a 2 versus 1 match, Elan thinks that she just needs to endure until someone comes. Alver knows that since she took care of a wild boar with a dagger, her skills are too good. However, the two men can make her sword fall to the ground because she hurt her hand recently. A soldier arrives from behind, telling them to finish it sooner and that they are inexperienced, but Alver still asks Elan nicely to come with them. Elan says to just eliminate her, so the soldier stabs her. Alver shouts at him, but the soldier says that they only need the body, dead or alive. Alver gets angry at the reinforcements sent by Hout Crescent and regrets accepting their volunteers. He presses the wound on Elan's body, but she says that she would die rather than become bait to catch the Emperor. Alver asks if she loves the Emperor, if it's just her pride. Maleka enters the room only to find a bloodstain on the floor. She tells the shadow assassins that they're too late and Elan has been kidnapped and hopes that she's safe. Two maids are talking about the fire when the Emperor and the shadow assassins arrive with a dark aura and ask about Elan. The children walk in the secret passage. They are afraid, but still think that since Elan is a knight, she'll be okay, and they have to hide well, for if they are caught, their mother will be in even more trouble. The Emperor looks at the bloodstain in Elan's room and orders Maleka to report. She kneels and tells him that they've put out the fire, found traces of oil in the fire, and arrested some intruders. The Emperor tells her that he's not interested in all that and asks about Elan. Maleka reports that it seems there was a battle between Elan and the intruders and the blood belongs to Elan. He touches the blood thinking, why are they taking his happiness away? But calms himself, saying that this is not a time to be shaking. He inquires about the children and she replies that they're still searching. The Emperor glares at her, saying that they are not doing anything properly. She admits her fault and tells him that she will gladly accept any punishment. He's about to touch her, but reverts his hand and tells her to search for Elan and the children. Maleka notices that he's changed since he gave her a second chance. She wonders if the cause of this change is Elan and reprimands herself for not being able to protect something precious to him. She shows her determination to find her, and the Emperor tells her to get up to the dungeons where the intruders are kept and are being questioned. The assassin there tells the Emperor that the intruder would not open his mouth. The Emperor sends him out, and the intruder says he will not speak even if they tortured him even more. The Emperor says that she would have stopped him if she saw this, but since they took her away, he will make them regret it. The Emperor heats the metal and tells him that he was trained personally in torture, unlike the guard before. While torturing him, he says he does not know if this hurts him more, but knowing the fact that people do not die easily, he can use many torture methods. No one will come to save him, so he's gonna die like this. The Emperor is torturing the intruder when a shadow assassin comes to report that there are traces of movement of the door in the fireplace, leading to a secret passage. Since there is no sign of resistance, they think that the children ran away from there. The Emperor decides to head to the Wind Palace and orders Maleka to extract more information from the intruder. The intruder curses him, saying that there is retribution for everything and that God will be the judge. The Emperor glares at him, telling them that since there is no God, his pleas would not be heard. The children keep walking when Enril says to take a break, and Leanne agrees. They both sit down, and Enril's stomach rumbles and he takes out the cookies he had hid to eat at night. He tells Leanne to eat the bigger one, but she says that since his stomach even rumbled loudly, he should eat the bigger one, and shoves the cookie in his mouth. Both enjoy the cookies, and Leanne helps Enril clean his mouth because it got dirty. She notices light approaching and they decide to run away. However, Enril falls and tells Leanne to run away by herself. She does not run away and closes her eyes while hugging Enril. When they hear the Emperor's voice, they start crying and hug him. They ask about Elan, and the Emperor tells them that she was kidnapped. After noticing that the children look sad, he says to not worry because he will bring her back. Arisa sits in her room looking nervous, but Sarah reassures her that they hired professionals and experienced people. Arisa says that the plan was a success. It has to go as planned after taking such a risk. Alvair and his assistant carry the unconscious Elan, but the soldier tells him to leave her with him. Alvair questions him that it was in the contract, but the soldier says that his goal to make a deal was to get her in the first place. Alvair's assistant tells him to deal with it because it is annoying. The soldier snaps his fingers and the men rush to attack them. The soldier plans to take Elan away when everyone is busy fighting and rushes toward her. A man asks Alvair if he'll be safe after breaking the contract like this, but Alvair tells him that he knows that Duke Crescent is behind them, and if it is known that the Duke touched the Emperor's woman, they will be the one in danger. The assistant tells Alvair that Elan ran away. Elan runs in her serious condition while leaving blood tracks. Leonhardt comes to report something to the Emperor, but the Shadow Assassin tells him to come back later. Leonhardt realizes that they are hiding something from him since he got news from an informant that someone was dragged into the dungeon, so that must mean there were intruders in the West Palace last night. He scolds himself for not being able to do anything and decides to find out who broke into the Wind Palace. He has countless suspects, but the first one he needs to meet is Arisa since he has not seen her since last time, and she's obsessed by power and wants to be the Empress, so Elan must have been a thorn in her side. Deciding so, he stands in front of her room, but is shocked to hear Arisa shout about some woman who ran away. Arisa panics about the situation, about how she spent all the money to request this, but they lost her. Sarah tries to calm her down, but she stares at her and finds Leonhardt entering her room. He asks about what she just said, but she denies saying anything. Leonhardt tells her to not change the topic and to tell him about the request she made. She averts her eyes, saying it is a personal matter, and tells him to leave the room. Leonhardt grabs her forcefully and tells her to tell the truth since he is her brother. She questions the word brother and shouts that he's never acted like one. He's not interested in her well-being and does not care about what she did. Even when their parents passed away, Sarah was the one beside her. Her voice trembles as she asks if he's pretending to be her brother now. She tells him that she put in a request at the underground agency to kidnap the woman named Elan from the Wind Palace, but they already lost her. While crying with tears, she tells him to find him herself. Leonhardt says he always wanted to apologize to her, but now it's too late to say this and turns to his face, bidding her goodbye. Leonhardt wonders if this would not have happened if he paid more attention to his surroundings, but it's already too late for regrets. Since he cannot get any more information out of Arisa, he has to find her on his own. He asks his servants to gather all of those who followed Arisa's orders recently. 3 men present themselves in front of him, and he notices that none of them is outstanding or has a good reputation. They probably use them because it's easy to clean up afterward. He smiles coldly and asks to talk about what they know. They tell him all about Elan's fight. Leonhardt thinks that Arisa was not like this before, cooperating with unknown people and doing something against the Emperor. He tells them that he will deal with the knights under Arisa's order and to investigate the back alley agency where Arisa made the request. Elan keeps running and reaches close to the outer palace. She notices her seniors around is about to call out to them, but Alver appears from behind, and he places his hand on her mouth, telling her to be quiet. Alver can catch Alon, but he's too worried about the Imperial guards in the area. His assistants suggest luring them the opposite direction so he can run away with Alon. Alver does not like the idea, but he says that Alver has something to accomplish, so he should not be caught. The guard notices the assistant and chases after him while Alver runs in the opposite direction with Alon on his back. He senses Alon getting colder and wishes for her to hang on for a bit longer because the doctor is waiting in the new hideout. The Emperor tells Maleka that the ceremony for appointing titles to the prince and princess is in 3 days, but he is still not told the children. Maleka suggests telling them sooner, but he worries that Alon would get angry. However, he would rather have Alon get angry with him and hit him, for even if she hits him, he'd be happy. Maleka reassures him that Alon would return safely and suggests meeting the children. The children try their new clothes, but say they do not need new clothes since they have a lot. The woman tells them how royalty must wear fine clothes and persuades them with jewels. The Emperor arrives and says that he has to talk to the children. The children watch Maleka, say that they miss her, and inquire about their mother. She tells them that the Emperor is trying to find her and says that the Emperor has something to tell them. The Emperor fears the children might not want loyalty, but to assure their safety, he tells them that they will become his children. The Emperor tells them that he is their father and explains to them that they are going to be a prince and a princess. The children ask if he's going to marry Alon, and the Emperor tells them that that is right. They tell him they do not want to join the imperial family because 2 people should only get married if they love each other. If he wants to marry their mother, he should ask her about how she feels first. So they tell him to wait until she comes back, but the Emperor suggests adding them to the family tree first and then waiting for Alon to return. The 2 refuse, so Maleka tries to explain to them that if they join the imperial family, no one would be able to harm them and it would be easier to protect them and Alon. Enril hesitates, but Leanne agrees to do it because she does not want to be scared anymore and does not want to see Enril or Alon get hurt. If it means that she can protect them by being a princess, she would do so. Enril also agrees after putting it that way, and Maleka praises them for making a wise decision. She tells them that they will rise to a position of power where they will no longer have to bow down to anyone. Alon wakes up in a bed and wonders if Alver saved her since he has to keep her alive if he wants to lure the Emperor. Alver enters the room with food and sits beside her. She glares at him, but he asks if she has the energy to hold the spoon while smiling. She shouts at him saying that she does not need his food, but he grabs her face and tells her that she has to. She has to eat this to stay alive. Alon smacks his hand away and tells him to let her go. He apologizes for being rough with her and tells her to not forget that she is still a hostage. He says that the Emperor is desperate to find her. All kinds of kings are running around in the city to find her. He did not know that the Emperor would go so far for her because he's a cold-hearted monster. So Alver thanks Alon for allowing him to teach the Emperor what it's like to lose something precious. He offers Alon to cooperate with her and he would not hurt her. After Alver asks her to cooperate with him, Alon asks if he can ensure her children's safety. Alver remains silent so Alon gets that he cannot, and asks him to forget that they'd ever had this conversation. He asks if she's not afraid of the outcome if she does not comply. Of course, she knows that during the night training, she learned that in a hostage situation, they had to ensure that no harm would come to the Emperor, even if it meant sacrificing themselves. However, now she wants to live with her children. He tells her about the inauguration ceremony of the prince and the princess, which shocks Alon. Her head throbs after hearing the news, but decides to stay calm and assess the situation before taking action. Alver remembers the complaints of his companions about favoring Alon, so he is now determined to not hesitate any longer. Arisa reads the news about the inauguration ceremony and decides to go see the people who sent the news. Sarah tells her to calm down as they do not know who sent it, but Arisa refuses because she is already under house arrest and surveillance by her brother. Nothing is going to change if she just sits and watches. The one who sent the news is going to pick her up early in the morning. Alvera comes to pick Arisa up in a hood and she thinks that his hand is warm, but gets herself back on track quickly. He takes them to a carriage and reveals his face, shocking both Arisa and Sarah because Sarah saw him at the detective agency, and Arisa saw him when she was young because he's a prince of a fallen kingdom. Arisa knows that he wants to take revenge and asks for his purpose in joining hands with her. Alvera tells her that they are planning to kill every Imperial family member, and since Arisa also has Imperial blood, she will ascend the throne and continue to help them. She agrees to act as a puppet only if they bring her the Emperor. Alvera says that it will not be possible, but she says that it does not matter even if the Emperor is insane and broken down, she just wants him. Alvair finds it funny that she is willing to go this far for him even though he is the one who eliminated her parents. Arisa does not care what he did and just wants to be by his side, so Alvair agrees. She further tells him that no one is going to believe them that she has the Imperial blood if they do not have solid proof, but Alvair shows her a document containing information about the Emperor and Leonhardt. Arisa is shocked after reading the document and thinks that her brother might also have had a hand in eliminating their parents, so she decides to help Alvair. Upon her return, Leonhardt asks where she has been because she was not allowed to leave the house. She answers that she was feeling cooped up, so she went for a walk, but Leonhardt does not buy her lie and confines her in the East Tower while asking Sarah to follow him. He asks Sarah if she knows about the underground prison of the Imperial Palace and says that if the Emperor finds out what Arisa did, she will be dragged to that prison. Therefore, he asks her to tell him everything because he wants to protect Arisa, and Sarah decides to tell him everything. The children prepare for the ceremony when Maleka arrives in a shadow assassin uniform, telling them she is originally a knight. The Emperor also arrives and the children hug him, telling them they are ready. The Emperor and the children walk together and the people around them comment positively. The Emperor tells them that they will do great because they are his and Alon's children, and the children also show motivation. The children walk into the hall after the Emperor, and the people there comment about their mother's status. The children remain steadfast and greet the Emperor formally, but he tells them to call him Dad, which shocks the audience. But Enril says that since this is a formal event, he will call them that when it's over. Marquise Rayon is thinking that the Emperor really cares about the children because he gave them a position where no one would harm them, when he finds Leonhardt looking angry and thinks that something must be wrong. The Emperor officially announces the children as the members of the Imperial family. Alana is worried about her injuries healing slowly, because at this rate she will end up being used by them. She even thinks about taking Alvair as a hostage, but her current state cannot win against him. She wants to at least tell the Emperor about her situation and remembers that the Emperor can enter her dreams, and she lies down to sleep, thinking that she never imagined praying for him to show up in her dreams. Alvair receives a message through a carrier pigeon from Arisa telling him to meet again, but he finds it strange because it is not possible for her to meet so easily under surveillance, and the security around the house crescent has become much tighter. He thinks that Leonhardt sent this message pretending to be Arisa and thinks that it is possible that they have been caught. Alvair wants to meet Leonhardt if he can, but his assistant tells him it would be too dangerous. Alvair says that since the message told them to decide the time and place, it means that Leonhardt wants to meet them in secret. Alvair knows that this could be a part of a scheme, but he wants to take this gamble. Leonhardt visits Arisa and tells her that Sarah told him everything, but Arisa thinks that he must have done something to her because Sarah would never betray her. Leonhardt asks why she joined hands with such people, but Arisa asks him why she left their parents to die and pledged loyalty to the one who eliminated their parents. He tells her that she does not need to know, but Arisa wants to know because they were her parents as well. Leonhardt tells her that even if she knew, she would not be able to do anything about it. The two look at each other, and after some time, Leonhardt turns his face and apologizes. Arisa says that she does not want an empty apology. They really must be siblings because looking at him is like looking at herself. They both can do anything in order to get what they want. Leonhardt agrees that they are the same. He is returning after meeting her when a servant tells him that the carrier pigeon has returned. Leonhardt deduces that since it took such little time for it to return, it means they are hiding in the capital. He reads the letter and finds that they want to meet at a cabin located on a small mountain. He finds that they knew he sent the message because Arisa could never go to the mentioned location. This could be a trap, but he has no time to waste. He goes to the location with some knights and enters the cabin. Alvair sits inside calmly, saying that they have an uninvited guest. Leonhardt asks if they are uninvited and why they let them in so easily. Alvair tells him to sit and asks of his assistant to get them a cup of tea. Leonhardt asks to get down to business and asks if she should address him as the leader of the rebellion or the prince. Alvair replies that his kingdom is gone, so he can just call him the leader of the rebellion, or just Alvair. Alvair guesses that he is not here for Arisa, so perhaps he wants to talk about restoring the power of the aristocratic party, because he can tell by their actions that they have grievances against the emperor. Leonhardt asks for his purpose to meet him face to face when he knew he was coming instead of Arisa. Alvair tells him that they need the support of the aristocratic party, and the Crescents are the perfect people for this purpose. He says that they are the ones to kidnap Elan and plan to use her to lure the Emperor. Leonhardt asks if they are sure that the Emperor would fall for the trap and thinks that he is so pathetic that he has to use the person he loves to lure the Emperor out. Alvair notices his strange expressions when Leonhardt asks about Elan. Alvair tells him that they're letting her rest, but Leonhardt says he wants to meet her. Alvera tells them that it's impossible to bring her to their side, even though he is their friend, and tells them about how they met. He takes him to meet Alon because he considers Leonhard as his ally. Leonhard is surprised to know that they are hiding so close to the capital. Alvera tells him that things will be complicated after he meets Alon, and Leonhard also knows that she might attack him after knowing that he has joined hands with the rebels, but he cannot back down. Alon dreams of the Emperor, but he does not look at her or notice her presence. As the dream fades away, she shouts the Emperor's name and wakes up to find herself squeezing Leonhard's arm. She gets startled and thinks that since she's feeling pain, it cannot be a dream. She says he must be there to save her and asks where the Emperor is. Leonhard frowns and asks why she's asking about him. When she says that she wants to see the Emperor, he grabs her and asks if she finds him suspicious. Alon asks if he's joined the rebels, and he affirms, which shocks Alon. Her head throbs and she asks his reason to join the rebels, but he tells her to lie down because she looks pale. Leonhard asks if she's happy to be bound by the Emperor against her will. Alon asks if he's trying to convince her to join the rebels. Leonhard says that the Emperor is a tyrant who killed countless people for his goal. Alon tells him that the Emperor has changed, but Leonhard says that he may be gentler for the time being, but it is all facade. He will use her and then abandon her like he did with his parents. Alon is shocked because she thought that their death was an accident, but Leonhard tells her that the Emperor eliminated them because he's a cruel man. He asks if she's going to leave her children with him when they were the reason she was hiding. He tells her that he will protect her children, so she says she needs some time to think. She thinks that she does want her children to be safe, but after remembering her time with the Emperor, she does not want the Emperor to die. Leonhard steps out and Alvera asks how it went. Leonhard says that she will think about it, but Alvera says that he failed to convince her, so they would go with their original plan. Leonhard says to give him one more chance at convincing her, and Alvera agrees, for he once was friends with Alon. He says that he's going to use her as bait if she does not agree. Leonhard warns him to not refer to her as bait. Alvera thinks that it'd be best to team up with Arisa as well, since she's easy to deal with, unlike Leonhard. The children find themselves in front of books, and Maleka tells them that this is the only basis for their lesson so far, and they will start more in-depth lessons at a later date. Leanne gets dizzy just from looking at the text, but she sparkles when Maleka tells her that they'll be having swordsmanship training after this lesson is over. When the children are asleep, the Emperor sits close to them, and Maleka reports on their studies. Maleka worries that the Emperor is rushing their studies to make sure that the aristocrats do not look down on them, and the children can come to resent him for it in the future. The Emperor tells Maleka to take her leave, and he pats the children, thinking that he has taken many lives with these hands, and he has never regretted it until now. He thinks that Alon is in danger right now because he let a few of the enemies slip away. He decides to eradicate them all and get rid of the annoying aristocratic society. Leonhard deduces that the Emperor is going to make the children his successors, so no one is going to dare touch them. He's keeping them safe so that even Leonhard as the captain of the knights cannot reach the children. It might mean that the Emperor is planning to get rid of the aristocratic society. A servant tells him that while he was away, Marquis Rayon's servant dropped by and said there was a person causing trouble at the outer palace. A shadow assassin also brings the news of the commotion to the Emperor, and the Emperor tells him to get rid of them. The shadow assassin tells him something, and the Emperor orders him to bring the person. The person in question takes a box out and throws it to the Emperor. The Emperor opens the box to find a cut finger inside of it. The person goes crazy and asks how he feels to see his loved one's finger chopped off. The Emperor orders to take the person and interrogate them. The Emperor thinks that he was shaken for a second, but the finger is too smooth to belong to someone who held a sword for a long time. Since it does not belong to Alon, it could be the rebels' warning that they could actually hurt Alon. He finds it funny that when the Empire fell in chaos, the kingdoms joined hands with the members of the imperial family who ran away and tried to conquer it. But once their own kingdom fell after their defeat, they blamed him for it. Leonhard greets the Emperor and asks about the suspicious person. The Emperor tells him that he is the torture chamber, and when Leonhard asks what happened, the Emperor tells him everything. Leonhard is relieved to know that the finger did not belong to Alon and reports that they have searched everywhere but could not find Alon. The Emperor does not fully trust him, so he tells him that some shadow assassins are going to join the knights to widen the search radius. Leonhard reluctantly thanks the Emperor, but thinks he's keeping an eye on him, and it all could be according to Alvera's plan. Alvera wonders about the Emperor's reaction, but his assistant asks if they have mentioned this to Leonhard because he's an ally now. Alvera says that they do not know what might happen in the future if he was late to react when the Emperor showed him the finger. The Emperor could find that if they have joined forces, and besides, they're just using each other, so there is no point in being nice to each other. His assistant tells him not to push him too far, but Alver is not worried about Leonhardt but is more excited about the Emperor's reaction because he wonders if a monster can feel sadness. Since Alon's kidnapping did not elicit the reaction he expected, he wanted to see if their threats would work on him. He decides to convince Alon to join their side because they have to give Leonhardt what he wants if they want him to ease up. Alon dreams of enjoying her time with the Emperor, but she sees him covered in blood and wakes up with tears in her eyes. She's been having this dream since Leonhardt came to meet him. She does not know about her feelings anymore and is saying the Emperor's name when Alver knocks on the door and enters the room. He comments on her pale complexion and sits beside her, asking if she's feeling cooped up in this room. He handcuffs her so they can go on a walk. Alon notices children and women around them and thinks that these must be kingdom refugees. Alver tells her to keep in mind what it would mean if the Emperor decides to kill all the rebels. He would do as he did in the past, killing innocent along with the soldiers. Alon asks if he's trying to do the same thing, but Alver says he would be satisfied if she brought the Emperor's head, and he would not touch his children. Alon asks how she's supposed to trust him and tells him to end the talk here. She is determined to abide by her knightly values and is willing to risk her life protecting her master. Alver thinks that it is not easy to convince her, so he will have to use her as he originally planned. The Emperor dreams of Alon shedding tears of blood and asking about her finger. He wakes up in his shadow assassin and worries about his health as he is using a dream potion as well as sleep-inducing medicine at this point. The Emperor tells him not to worry about him and asks about the search progress. They still haven't found anything, but another shadow assassin brings the box from last time. The Emperor opens the box and finds that this finger does not belong to Alon as well, but worries if they send the real one the next time. Leonhardt is angry at what Alver did, and twice at that. He has to return to the rebel base but has shadow assassins on his tail. He cannot even send carrier pigeons. He finds it ironic how he loves Alon and wants her to be safe, and he should have saved Alon, but chose to take revenge on the Emperor. A servant brings him a change of clothes with a hidden letter inside of them. The rebels contact him first and he finds that Alon is safe, so even if he hates his contradictory actions, even if Alon comes to hate him, he needs to have his vengeance and make Alon belong to him. The aristocrats gossip about the Emperor's health, how he seems very tired and looks vicious like in the old days. A servant comes to Marquise Rayon and tells him that Leonhardt wants to see him. Marquise Rayon thinks that aristocrats are waiting for the Emperor's power to weaken, so they're going to join hands with the House Crescent to put them in the forefront. Leonhardt flaps the documents in front of him and asks him to take a look at them. Marquise Rayon looks shocked after looking at them and asks how he got them. Leonhardt tells him that it would be difficult for the Marquise if his corruption got out. Marquise Rayon asks him the reason to threaten him when they only meet to discuss how to take down the Emperor. Leonhardt tells him that this is not a threat, but insurance in case something happens to him. Marquise Rayon asks what he wants, and Leonhardt asks if he's been able to gather people for their cause. When the Marquise tells him that he's convinced as many people as possible, Leonhardt asks about the military strength. Marquise thinks it's too early to be thinking about that, but Leonhardt says it's the perfect time, and tells him about the rebels. The Marquise shouts after knowing that he has joined hands with the rebels, but Leonhardt tells him to quiet down, and not to raise his voice against him. Marquise Rayon gets the chills and he apologizes for his rudeness. He says that the rebels may have the same goal, but they have different motives, but Leonhardt tells him that he's just using the rebels. Marquise Rayon is still not convinced because he thinks that the rebels will hold a grudge against them and they despise everything about their nation. Leonhardt tells him that once they have dealt with the Emperor, they will get rid of the rebels as well. Marquis asks if that's possible and Leonhardt smirks, saying that he would not have proposed it if it was not possible. Marquise Rayon says that it is easier said than done because they will have to deal with Shadow Assassins and the Imperial Knights. Leonhardt reminds him of his position and tells him that he will scatter the Knights so they cannot defend the Emperor. He tells the Marquise about his part in the plan and he agrees. The Marquise thinks that Leon is like a viper. Alon is still handcuffed and thinks that since her injuries have healed, Alver to keep his guard against her. She thinks that the Emperor cannot find her now, but finds her when she wants to stay hidden. She no longer has to wait for the Emperor because her injuries are healed and the rebels can do anything to her. She plans to use the chance when they bring her food. When the guard enters the room, he finds Alon sleeping, so he decides to leave the tray on the table and complains about how they have to take care of her because she's a special hostage. While behind him, Alon gets up and uses the chains of the handcuffs to choke him. The man falls down and she takes care of the guard outside the door the same way. She's planning on running away, but Alver arrives and praises her for her talent, saying that he thought she was being quiet, but she was waiting for a chance to pounce. She finds that he's alone and attacks him, but Alver wields his dagger and she still catches him with her chain. She plans to snatch the dagger from him, but he pulls her toward him and whispers in her ear that she's a lot weaker now. Alan attacks back and gets on top of him, telling that she is not weak since he could not even stab her with the dagger. Alvaire tells her that if she hurts her, the alliance with Leonhardt will be completely over. He holds him by the neck using the chain and decides to use him as a hostage, even though Alvaire tells her that it's not going to work. She takes him to his assistant and tells him that she will kill Alvaire if he tries to move. The assistant tells her to let Alvaire go and return to the room. Alan does not get threatened since she has Alvaire in her hands. Alvaire keeps smiling, telling her that she is so scary. He orders his assistant to do what he ordered him before, so his assistant tells him that he will abandon him if necessary. Alan thinks that even if those were the orders, he would not abandon his master so easily. Alvaire says that she might think it's a bluff, but she should know that a servant will obey his master's orders since she was a knight once. Alan cannot believe that he will smile at a time like this, and a man enters the room. The assistant tells him to close the door, but Alan stabs Alvaire. She leaves him and runs away while pursuers behind her. She keeps running, but a man throws her on the ground and starts hitting her with his foot. Alvaire tells him to stop as she's to be used as a hostage so they cannot hurt her too much. He asks for a sword and says that he just needs to do something important. He places this sword near Alan and tells her that she is still their precious hostage, so he will not do something too harsh. The Emperor watches the children sleeping and smiles. Malika tells him that they are still anxious because Alan is still missing, but they are staying strong and doing their studies. When the Emperor stumbles, Malika shouts in worry, but the Emperor tells her to stay quiet or the children will wake up. Malika suggests that he take some rest, but he tells her to not worry, and a shadow assassin brings him a box. The Emperor opens the box to find Alan's hair inside. He asks about the person who brought the box, and the shadow assassin says that they're in prison being tortured to get more information, but they're quiet, and the leader says that he wants to talk to the Emperor. The Emperor heads to the prison, and the person calls him a coward for bringing him back up with him. He says that if he wants to see Alan, he has to go to the Heath Mountains. There's a cabin located in the deepest part of the mountain, and she'll be waiting for him there. He further says that if he does not go there by noon 2 days from now, she'll be dead, and they'll make him fall on his knees. The Emperor orders to deal with him in the most painful manner and leaves. The shadow assassin asks him to not go as it could be a trap, and the Emperor also knows that, but he thinks that he does not care, if Alan's life is on the line. The Emperor tells him to prepare his horse, but the shadow assassin objects that it is too dangerous. However, he tells him to be silent and obey his orders. He prepares to leave, and a maid reports to Leonhardt about the number of forces he's taking with him. A soldier reports to Leonhardt that they have been ordered to move. Malika arrives from behind and she tells him that the Imperial Knights have been assigned to protect the prince and the princess, and she'll be commanding the Imperial Knights for the time being. Leonhardt questions her that since he's the captain, he should be the one to order if they want to protect the prince and the princess. Malika tells him that these are the Emperor's orders and asks if he wants to defy them. He takes his leave, complying with the orders. The soldier beside Leonhardt complains that they should be the ones to escort the Emperor instead of shadow assassins, and now they're going to command them as well. Leonhardt thinks that this is an opportunity for him because the knights are not too happy right now, and the security is lost, and this is his chance to get close to the children because they are a perfect hostage to eliminate the Emperor. Alana is sleeping and Alvaire checks on her condition, saying that she has a high fever. His assistant says that this is not a problem, but Alvaire tells him that they cannot get rid of her after the mission, as there are other people looking for her, so she'll be useful. Alan hears them and worries about the Emperor. She feels the carriage stop and finds Leonhardt in front of her. He tells her that he's going to kill the Emperor but will protect the children, but she knows that he's going to use them for his plans as well. Alan wakes up in a dream and finds the Emperor holding her, asking if the spell worked at last. She tells him that she is real and starts crying while smiling. He's glad to know that her finger is alright, but Alan does not know why. Therefore, he tells her that they sent him a severed finger that they claimed as hers, so he was worried that they were going to hurt her. He was so anxious that he regretted his past actions that he was not used to doing before. Alan notices that he has changed because he was cruel in the past, but now he's regretting his actions. She asks about the children, and he says that the children are fine and doing their best with what they can. They're learning new things. Leanne enjoys her swordsmanship lessons, and Enril enjoys his history lessons. She's shocked to know that they're already receiving lessons, but the Emperor tells them that these are necessary in order to secure their positions. The Emperor tells her that they also miss their mother, and Alan says she misses them too. The Emperor draws closer to her and asks about her health, as she looks thinner. She tells him that she just has a small wound on the side. The Emperor gets gloomy and tells her to show him. Alan resists, but he touches the wound and says that she must be in a lot of pain. Alan tells him that this is nothing because she used to be a knight. The Emperor finds it hard to believe after looking at the wound, but he's glad that it is healed. She tells him that the rebels treated it for her, and the Emperor finds it surprising. He tells her to wait a little longer because he will save her soon. She tells him if he does not hurry, she will escape by herself. She gets a shock and tells him that they're trying to wake her, so she'll be pulled awake from the dream. She says to abandon her if worse comes to worse. The Emperor tells her not to say such things because saving her is the top priority. Alon strokes his face, telling him that she should not be the top priority. He should put the children's safety above everything else and take care of himself. Tears flow from his eyes, but Alon tells him to not forget about it. Alon wakes up with a jolt and finds Alver in front of her, who offers her medicine because she was breaking out in a cold sweat. He tells her to get out of the carriage after taking the medicine because they've arrived at the Heath Mountains and are going to stay here for the time being, and warns her to behave, as his patience is running low, so he cannot guarantee her safety any longer. Leanne cannot sleep, worrying about lessons being cancelled and the extra security around their room, and how the Emperor did not come to visit them today. And Real reassures her that there were times when the Emperor did not come to visit because he was busy, and tells her to ask Maleka if she's so worried. Maleka enters the room and finds the children awake. She tells them not to worry as everything will be fine and tells them that she has something to inform them. In the hallway, Maleka comes across the Vice Captain of Knights, who reports that the preparations are done. He can still not believe that his captain, Leonhardt, would rebel against the Emperor, even though he pledged his loyalty. Maleka tells him to not let his past relationship with Leonhardt cloud his judgment. In the middle of the hall, she finds Leonhardt standing and asks for his purpose of arrival. He tells her that he's here to catch the Emperor, who eliminated the entire imperial family to gain the throne. Maleka diminishes the blame and tells him that the Emperor only did so to regain the peace of the Empire. Leonhardt refutes her claim and says that the Emperor silenced everyone through fear. Maleka tells him to drop the conversation if he's not going to believe her, so he unsheaths his sword, on which Maleka says that is much better. The fight breaks down between Maleka, Leonhardt, and the knights on either side. Leonhardt is able to run past Maleka, running upstairs while Maleka chases after him. Leonhardt meets the vice captain on the way, who stops him, but Leonhardt slashes him, getting the attention of the other knights who question him about the rebellion, and eliminating his fellow comrade. Leonhardt tells him that the Emperor that they are trying to protect is not worthy, but the knights claim that the peace they have today in the Empire is all thanks to the Emperor. Leonhardt tells them that the peace is not real, so they engage in battle. Leonhardt defeats them all and enters the children's room, but they're not present. He realizes that they have already been moved, and the knights he just fought are just a bait to buy more time for the children. If he wants to know of their escape route, he needs to capture Maleka, but since she's a shadow assassin, she will not open her mouth, even in the face of her own death. He decides to take care of her and the other knights first. The mirror in the room catches his attention. He looks at his reflection covered in blood. The Emperor rides his horse at full speed, but the horse is tired. The Emperor tells him to hang on a little longer because he knows that if he does not make it in time, Alon's life could be in danger. Metal chains fly around him and he is surrounded by the enemy who plan to restrain him. Suddenly, the chains break midair and a Shadow Knight tells the Emperor to be on his way while they take care of things here. He rushes forward and keeps thinking about his past mistakes of not dealing with the rebels sooner and not being honest with Alon. He condemns himself, thinking how he told Alon that he did not need their children. It took him too long to understand that he wants to live with Alon and the children. He decides to save Alon even if it means risking his life. Inside a cottage, Alon is sitting on the floor when Alver's assistant tells her to come with him. She tells him that she cannot move, but he yanks her towards him using the chains in her hands. He takes her to Alver and they think that the Emperor will be here soon. Alon tells him that he would not come because they made a promise. Alver says otherwise and points to a direction, asking her if she cannot hear the sound. Alon notices the sound of a horse approaching and a shadow appearing in the woods. She panics, realizing that the Emperor is alone without any knights with him. Alver smirks and tells her that she was wrong. The Emperor came all the way here just to save Alon. Alver is excited in anticipation, but is shocked when he finds a covered body on the horse. Alon smiles while telling him that she was right. The Emperor did not come. Alver is sure that this is not the case, but he expected such an outcome as well. He orders his men to search the area because he believes that the Emperor must be hiding nearby. A few of the men start looking for the Emperor, and one of them tells others to be on their guard. Another says that his body has been feeling a little heavy ever since they walked inside the forest. He turns around to find himself all alone. The Emperor appears behind him and slashes him with his sword. The Emperor thinks that now the enemy has entered the forest, it is easier for him to assassinate them. He is glad that the paralizillant he brought with him is working. Alver gazes at the forest and finds the silence and stillness strange. Regardless of whether they found the Emperor or not, they should be reporting back to him by now. He turns to Elan, telling her that they have to change the plans a bit, and he grabs her neck. He shouts to the Emperor that if he is not coming up by the time he counts to 10, he's gonna get rid of Elan. Elan tells him that now he is really acting like a villain. He tells her that he can do things that are much worse than this if it means getting what he wants. He tells Elan to shut her mouth, but Elan replies that shutting her mouth is not going to change her situation. She shouts, telling the Emperor not to come because they cannot eliminate her. Alvair frowns while telling her that he does not care about the promise he made. The only reason he has treated her with delicacy is because of their time spent together at the village. He notices the rustle of the leaves and the Emperor appears. Alvair shoves Elan to his assistant and greets the Emperor. The Emperor tells him that he does not know who Alvair is, which comes as a shock to him. Alvair says that he destroyed his kingdom and still does not know who he is. The Emperor tells him that he does not care to remember those who are not important. Alvair finds it offensive and declares that this time he will make sure to burn his image in his mind. He will make him feel the same sadness and desperation that he felt. Alvair orders his assistant to cut off Elan's finger. The Emperor calls out to Elan and Alvair becomes happy to finally get a reaction out of him. The Emperor asks him what he wants because he will do as he says. Alvair tells him to drop all his weapons and the Emperor does so. Alvair then tells him to get on his knees, so the Emperor follows his order. Alvair is speechless to find the man who destroyed his kingdom kneeling before him, the arrogant and cruel Emperor on his knees just for one woman. Alvair gets bold and tells the Emperor to beg for forgiveness for taking the lives of all those people. The Emperor obediently apologizes, but Alvair steps on his head and asks him to really beg like his life depended on it while whacking on his head. The Emperor says that he will beg as he says, but let Elan go. Alvair reminds him how his people screamed and begged for mercy, but he did not spare them. After what he did, how can he spare her? Alvair orders his men to cut Elan's finger. The man's about to stab her, but Elan takes advantage of the opportunity to kick the man and grab the dagger. She tells Alvair to stop, but he says that she is in no position to take them on. Elan knows that, so she places the dagger against her own neck, telling him to stop or she will take her own life. Alvair tells her that her threats are not going to work, but Elan would rather die than let him use her and manipulate her any further, and tells him to get away from the Emperor this instant. The Emperor moves his head towards Elan with difficulty and tells her to put the dagger down, as it's dangerous. However, Elan refuses. She knows that it is a ridiculous threat, but that does not mean that it's not going to work. Alvair, after thinking for a long time, moves his foot from the Emperor's head, saying that Elan is being foolish. Elan rebukes that if she's being foolish, then why did he move his foot, and tells him to get away from the Emperor. Alvair thinks that Leonhardt is an important factor, and if Elan dies, he will turn against them, and that is too much for them to handle. The Emperor moves towards Elan when she tells him to, but Alvair takes out a dagger and throws it at the Emperor. But Elan counters it with her own dagger. Alvair orders and arrows fly towards them from all directions, so the Emperor carries Elan on his shoulder and runs. Elan tells him that she can run on her own, but the Emperor whistles and a horse arrives. They both escape on the horse while the enemy pursues them. After a while, the Emperor asks if they lost the enemy, but Elan does not answer and drops on his back. The Emperor notices blood on her shoulder, so he stops to bandage her and asks her about her health. Elan tells him that she's fine and that it was reckless of him to come alone. The Emperor tells her that he was trained as an assassin, so it's easier for him to act on his own. Granted, he had a terrible time when he was learning those skills. However, now he is glad that he did because they helped him rescue Elan. He tells her that he's happy to see her, and Elan reciprocates the same sentiment. Elan says that they should start moving because her bleeding has stopped now, but the Emperor tells her to get some more rest. She tells him that the rebels are still after them, but the Emperor tells her not to worry. Elan feels touched while hugging the Emperor and tells him that she is relieved to be with him, even though they are still in danger. Alvair worries that they still have not been able to catch the Emperor and Elan, but his assistant takes it upon him that he was not being careful, so he will gladly accept any punishment Alvair grants him. Alvair stares at him with a foul mood but tells him that there is no need for the punishment, as he does not have the heart to treat him like that. The assistant thanks him and promises to find the Emperor and bring him back. After he leaves, Alvair thinks that if they miss this opportunity to catch the Emperor, they will not have a chance like this in the future. Alvair is sleeping with her head on the Emperor's shoulder when the Emperor notices the rustle of the leaves around him. Thinking that it might be the enemy, he grabs a stone in his hand and plans that if it is the enemy, and if it's one or two men, he can take care of them with his bare hands. But if they're higher in number, he would need a weapon. He plans to send Elan on the horse while trying to buy her time if worse comes to worse. However, to his surprise, two shadow assassins appear from the bushes. They ask about the rebels, and the Emperor tells them that they got away from them. The Shadow Assassins plan to regroup and take care of the rebels, but the Emperor stops them. The Shadows ask if they do not have enough men to face them, because if they do not take care of them now, it could be too late. The Emperor tells them that they have enough forces to take them down right now, but doing so could bring harm to Lan and he does not wish to put her in danger again. The Shadow Assassins think that the Emperor has changed so much, because if this were in the past, he would have pulled his sword to eliminate all enemies. The Emperor carries the sleeping Lan in his arms and sweetly says that they're going home, where Leanne and Enril are waiting for them. Lan wakes up on a bed and asks where she is. The Emperor sitting beside the bed asks about her health and tells her to rest some more, even if she is feeling better. She's relieved to find that they got away safely and asks the location because this is not the Imperial Palace. The Emperor tells her that they are in Count Hess territory near the capital, because the rebels have seized the Imperial Palace. Lan panics thinking about the children, but the Emperor tells her not to worry as the children are here as well. She feels relieved and moves to go meet them, but the Emperor tells her to rest as it is nighttime and they can go to the children tomorrow. She laughs, thinking that the Emperor is being so warm and kind. The Emperor is happy to see her laugh because it means she's feeling well enough. He gets up to leave because he has some business to attend to, but Lan grabs his shirt by the arm and tells him to take some rest as well or he will faint from exhaustion. The Emperor thanks her for concern, but he has to take action against the rebels. Lan's mood drops, so the Emperor embraces her and tells her to spend the day together when things have calmed down. Alvair investigates in the forest but does not find any tracks left by them. His assistant tells him to stop for now as it's dark and they could be attacked. Alvair admits that he knows, but just then something glints behind him. His assistant calls out to him, but the blood splashes. Thank you so much for watching. Please check out these other videos and make sure to subscribe and press that bell icon to know about our latest videos.